I'll give one more.
Thank you.
Okay. Very well.
I thought it was ridiculous. She said,
You know, I never heard you before, so. Call this meeting to order, please. Please rise and join me in the
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please put your phones and pagers and such on silent, please. Do we have any citizen concerns? Hearing none, we'll ask for approval of the agenda.
Move it, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Young to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Items 3 through 6 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 3, approval of the minutes of May 15, 2018 meeting. 4, approval of claims. Item 5 is human resources. A, approval of memorandum of personnel transactions. B, approval of request to deauthorize county positions. C, authorized to initiate the hiring process. Number 6, secondary roads. Consideration of a permit for use of the county right-of-way for an underground utility. Item 7, juvenile detention approval.
6 was the end of it.
6 is the end of it.
6 is the end of it. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? Mr. Butler.
For information only on 5B, which is approval of request to deauthorize county positions, what we are doing, we're getting a list of all the positions that have been deauthorized since we actually adopted the budget. So in some cases, we may have to go back and amend our budget and decrease our budget to cover these so they are not left in the budget to be spent other places.
Understood?
Yep.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Marty?
I'm just going to, for the record, show that I'm voting no on 5B. Actually, half of 5B, but since they're all one, I'll just vote no on 5B.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda?
Can I just pull that one and then vote on it separately?
You want to vote on it separately? Okay.
Okay,
I'll ask that we pull 5B to be voted on separately.
I will motion that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5B.
Oh, yeah, we got to vote on 5B. We got to vote on 5B, so it's all in favor of 5B.
You can do it.
You can do either one first, and whatever the motion's made. Whichever motion's made, you can vote on, right?
Yeah, you're on consent agenda 3 through 6 with 5B has been removed. We'll vote on that after.
Right.
We need a separate motion after this one.
So I need to restate my motion.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Potabom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Vote on 5B.
I'll move 5B.
I'll second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Passes 4-1 with Potabom voting against.
I thought I could make it easier on you, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
That's all right. Number 7, juvenile detention. Approval of juvenile detention to lay claim to vacant section of 4th floor in Prosper Heights for future expansion.
Ryan Weber, juvenile detention. We developed a 5-year plan, Mark, and those guys of what we wanted to do with detention. Once I came on board, I messed that all up, and we went back and saw what was more cost effective and what we could do better with the money. One of the things we noticed in our plan is that we had plans for space on the 4th floor that wasn't technically ours, so we need to look at and decide if you'd like to award juvenile detention. Do you guys have a colored copy of this? You do. The green section on there used to be used by alternative schools years ago. I think it's been 7 or 8 years since they've used it. It's just a vacant room, very large room, carpeted, set up perfectly. We need more training space and storage area. Very little, if any, construction whatsoever at this point to have to use it. It's really not in our plans until 3 or 4 years down the road maybe, but we'd like to kind of lay claim to this space and use it temporarily for trainings and things like that. I think DHS uses it for yoga during their breaks. We don't have any issue with them continuing to use it for those reasons. So I don't know of anybody else that's asked for this space, but it's kind of just been sitting for years, and with your approval, I'd like to move on and use it.
I would move that.
I'll second for discussion.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. Mr. Taylor?
What kind of training, Ryan, are you looking at?
Well, for instance, right now we have people from Accurate Controls coming and training all our staff on how to use, the new controlled touchscreen systems. And we needed an area with a projector, which we don't have, a seating area, which we don't have, and right now we got to use the day area of the kids, which puts them in their room, which puts me at, issues with having them in their room too long. We've had several trainings. I can't do any kind of physical restraint training because we just don't have the space for it. We have, hard floors and that. Several times a year, we just need the space to do outside trainings and inside trainings. We have to come down. We had to come down here to do a CPR training and use an old boardroom because we just don't have any space up there available.
Okay.
And storage, as you can see, you may not know how detention's laid out, but this is kind of the last plan we came up with, and the best way we found to use the space ended up taking away one of our storage areas, and having an off-site storage isn't that big of an issue for us, so we would also use that area for storage.
It wouldn't be anything that has kids in it, though. Just be training.
Yeah. And it's still separate from the detention
Yes,
center.
that's why I was wondering when I saw that.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So are you not able to use the new facility being built out by County Home?
Right now, the detention has kind of a nice thing going because none of my staff drive anywhere. I don't ever have those kind of liabilities. There could be issues where we could use that if the jail's willing to provide me with some kind of restraint training. But, to pay drive time, to pay overtime, the liability of driving out there, having to schedule staff outside of work hours to go out there. For certain things it might be feasible, but to walk across the hallway, during work time or just after work time and to a space not being used right now, it just seems like a more logical thing.
Yeah, touring the building, it seemed like that yoga room was probably one of the most expendable areas of the building.
Yeah, I don't know how the lease agreement works. It seems like we always have different people in there. I don't know if they pay for it or how the boost program or what works, but I would think to dedicate it to detention would be a better idea.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. That's 5-0.
Thank you. One more note, we have all that construction going on right now, and I was real proud of the way, everybody came together and with Shane and Kenny, the pre-planning. I've never seen anything fall together quite like that. We've had several issues with wires not being where they need to be, but Schumacher came in and out, and it was just outstanding. They were done the day they say they'd be done. No issues whatsoever with them, and so far the Accurate Controls has been really good. So it definitely helped to have that planning ahead of time where, I knew each day who was doing what. It was definitely very helpful.
Great.
Thank you. We're set time for 4:45 for public hearing. We're not there yet. Mark, would you like to start? with secondary roads? Sure. Item 9, consider awards for bids for gravel haul to county roads for FY 2018.
We received 2 bids for gravel hauling for fiscal year 2019. Neither contractor will be able to do it in the timetable we had anticipated, so this is a project that will carry over into fiscal year 2019. The low quotation came from Hallett Materials. Sorry, I don't have my papers here quite ready. $331,000. Trying to find the right sheet. $331,513.20. I recommend award. Now, this is higher than what we've set aside for this project, which was $300,000 in each fiscal year. When we let the fiscal year 2019 gravel, we'll roll that back to $270,000 so that we end up with the same amount of money each fiscal year. So,
I'd move to award the bid for maintenance gravel haul of 2018 to Hallett Materials, Wall Lake, Iowa.
Second.
Second, a motion by Taylor, second by Hung to approve award. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. That's B, consider award of tandem axle pump truck bid for the secondary roads department.
we evaluated the bids submitted from the local truck vendors and recommend award of the low bid to Boyer Trucks of Sioux Falls, $164,240, including the trade-in for the Kern County truck. While the dealer is out of Sioux Falls, the truck is being assembled in Sioux City by Stephan Equipment.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Hung to approve award. Any other questions?
Just for the board's information, the next 3 bids in order were going to be assembled in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Crystal Lake, Minnesota, or Omaha, Nebraska. So, we ended up with local dealer looking elsewhere and out-of-town dealer building at home. So this is one of the reasons I've been hesitant to do anything that's strictly in county with these bids. We're also very pleased to be getting another Western Star. Our drivers who have received these trucks are rating them very highly as far as in-cab quiet. The cabs are really superior built. Stephan's reports to us they're very easy and accommodating to plumb and wire with the necessary accessories that we put into a dump truck. So we're very pleased to see that again.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. You might have time for one more, Mark. Consider approval of resolutions of drainage district tax levies.
Actually, this is a whole series that we're looking at, so we'll move them along as quickly as we can. We recommend award for the Orton Slough Drainage District, or recommend levy for the Orton Slough Drainage District of $20,000 for fiscal year 2019.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Elm, second by Raddick to approve drainage district tax levies. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
For the board's information, they have $17,019 in outstanding warrants at this time. So we're looking at covering that plus their drainage district dues and any minor expenses that might occur during this fiscal year.
So will it be essentially, I don't want to say a zero balance, but will it be?
A small positive balance at the end of this fiscal year, assuming that there's no further problems.
So what if there is? Do you have to go back and
No, then we'll levy it in fiscal year 2020. So warrants are issued. The board set the interest rates at 5% for those warrants. Banks and others buy those as investments over the course of the year until the treasurer can redeem them with the subsequent year's property taxes. Last year's levy for that was $50,000, so this is a considerable reduction for them this year. Again, there was a great deal of work done in their district in the prior fiscal year.
Item 9C passed 5-0. Mr. Gill, and you are on for the
Dismissed for a moment. Yes, sir.
Mr. Butler, public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and the issuance of notes to evidence the obligation of the county thereunder. Public hearing is now open. Are there any comments for or against?
Hearing none, Mr. Chair, I move that the public hearing be closed.
Second. Mr. Young seconds the motion by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Okay, the second part is to pass a resolution not to borrow more than $550,000. There will be less. I have provided a sheet showing where the $550,000 is going. Also, we did approve last fall to borrow the money for the sheriff's radios. And so with a combination of two, we'd be borrowing $1,358,000, but our bonding council always goes a little bit higher in case something did come up that we need the extra money. But in this case, we pretty much got their plans reviewed that the county or building superintendent has asked for here for fiscal year 18. We did budget for the bond principal and interest payment back to the bank, whatever bank we do get. And the treasurer did send out for bids, so we'll find out probably in a week who the bank's going to be and progress through the loan. This is less than last year. Last year we borrowed $4.7 million, so it's considerably less.
Questions or comments for Mr. Butler?
I don't know, do they have to read the resolution or they just pass the resolution, Pat? Okay.
I will move to authorize the loan agreement.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Young, to authorize the loan agreement. Further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Okay, the third item is, in the past, we have always asked how much is it going to cost us to do these resolutions, public hearings, all the public notices, reviewing the capital project we do have to make sure we're in compliance with the code. And we do have Allers do all of our work for this. We usually split. Allers does this work. Our TIF is done by Bob Johnson's law firm. So in this case, it's Allers Cooney. It's $6,200. It's a set fee, not to exceed $6,200. It's the same fee as it was last year. So this is something we get to make sure we know what we're paying for. Set a dollar amount instead of kind of guessing.
So I'm clear we're on 8C.
Yes.
Any questions? I move approval.
Second.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Reddick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. 5-0.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Nara, you are back up. Item 9D, consider an award bid for rental of Reese Farm property for 2018.
We're still on C.
No, we still have more to do. Setting the tax rate for Smoky Hollow Drainage District, recommended $0 be levied.
I'll move it. Second.
Motion by Reddick, second by Young. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Weber Creek Drainage District, again, recommends $0 be levied against the district.
I'll move it. Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Reddick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
It's kind of fun to do the ones that don't actually put money on people. Wolf Creek Drainage District, the recommended levy is $35,000.
I'll move it.
If the board remembers, Wolf Creek is in a long-term project here where we're doing reauthorization and appropriation of the drainage district levy for the entire district in preparation for a large cleanout project.
They're kind of up a creek on that.
More or less. It's the bottom of the creek that's the mess, but
I have a motion by Mr. Raddick,
No, probably not going to get a second for that one.
I'll second the dry humor and the motion.
second by Mr. Young. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. That's 5-0.
Bennett McDonald Drainage District, recommended levy of $1,000.
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion by Raddick, second by Taylor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Smithland Drainage District, $0.
I'll move it.
I will second Mr. Raddick's motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Wolf Creek Pumping District, recommend $50 levy.
I'll move it.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Wolf Creek Pumping District number 3, $0.
I'll move it.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
Anthon Central Drainage District, recommend $0.
I'll move it.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0.
And finally, Maple River Drainage District, recommend $0.
I'll move the final one.
Motion by Raddick, second by DeWitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
These require signatures of all board members and testify to the county auditor. Next, we have consider bids and awards for 41 acres of crop ground at the Grease Farm by Correctionville. That's the location of our new gravel pit property. We partitioned off 41 acres of primarily ag ground for this first few years of gravel production. We had a number of interested bidders, so we'll begin opening those. The first bid is from Keith Parker of Washita, Iowa. $225 per acre, $9,225 total lease. Next is from Hillcrest Pork, LLC, Frank and Don Hirschman, bidding $275 per acre, $11,275. Next is from Terry Sheaver, Sheaver Brothers, $260 per acre for a total of $10,660. The final bid is from Josh Albers, $280 per acre, $11,480 total. I would recommend award to Josh Albers. I would also request that the board allow us to give him possession immediately while the paperwork chases. We should have the rental contract for you next week. We are getting down now to where it's time to get planted out there.
I move it.
Second.
What was Mr. Parker's bid?
Mr. Parker was
130 or something like that.
225.
And Mr. Albers?
Mr. Albers was 280.
Okay, thank you.
Motion by DeWitt, second by Raddick. And that includes the approval to, the verbal okay to get them, let them start?
To allow them to get started, and we'll bring bring back a rental contract for board approval next week. The terms of the rental contract that the board's used in the past is 50%, which we set for June 1st, and 50% on December 1st.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Passes 5-0.
We're using the same contract terms that Karen provided me for the county farm home. And then the checks would be made out to the secondary road department, deposited in the secondary road fund to help us offset the cost of purchase of the property.
9E, consider bid for project number B82.
Ben has bid tabulations for the board. This is on, I believe it's 140th Street. It's near the Lutheran Church on Lee Avenue. This bridge was washed out during the June 15th, 2016 flood event. The bridge had been posted 3 tons. The flood exposed piling that were almost rotted down to where my forearm is larger than a couple of inches piling at the water-dirt interface line. So we could not reopen that bridge safely, and we designed a new culvert. It's permitted, and we're ready to let that project now.
So you could potentially hold this bridge up with your...
Pretty close. It is a short span structure. We're able to replace it with a box culvert, so we'll be eliminating the rails up on top of the bridge. When they're hydraulically adequate, our property owners tend to like these structures. So. Bid bond is included. The first bid is from Gus Construction of Casey, Iowa. Total bid, $240,211.60. 240-211-60. Next bid is from Dixon Construction of Correctionville, Iowa. Bid bond is included. Total bid price, $220,270. 220-270. Final bid is from Graves Construction. Bid bond included. Total bid price, $301,446. 301,446.
Is there any?
Can I look at the unit cost? Did you give me just a minute? We've got enough separation here to probably allow an award today.
Need a motion to receive the bids, do we not, Pat?
Receiving. I think he wants to review it.
Receive an award, right?
We're all trying to read his mind as he pours over.
The units are clearly low for Dixon Construction. We can make award to Dixon of Project B82.
I move to do so. Please.
Second.
Motion by Taylor, second by Potabom. Further questions to receive the low bid? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. You need anything else, Mark?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Do we have reports on committee meetings?
Chair?
Yes, sir.
We had what I'm hoping is not the final, historical committee meeting, but historical centennial meeting.
Are you planning for the next 100 already?
We are starting to get a grip on the next 100. So we are wrapping up how we are going to schedule tours in the future. I'll be putting together some information for you today, Mr. Chair, that ask you to maybe be a conduit of regarding if an elected official schedules a tour, to be responsible for that and the coordination. If it's a request from an outside entity to our board office, they will help. Pleased to do that with the sheriff's office and a potential judge or county attorney, and make sure that courthouse security knows, so we can make that a smooth process. And just wrapping up some things as far as thank yous and so on. That's one. And then thank you to Supervisor Ung for keeping the website up and so on. Something that we'll continue to have. We did have an interesting assessors conference board meeting. I think in the next few months there's going to be some information that our new city assessor will need to share with the public as to how assessments will be taking place in the future in a fair and equitable manner, which may be a deviation from the last decade. And I think that that's going to be very important that he takes the lead. That was a public meeting. There was no media present. But I will, without saying too much more, I think that there's going to be a difference in how these assessments are going to be made that will be more comporting with the intent and spirit of the law, as well as the standard by which assessments are to be made. Be interested to see the minutes from that meeting, but it's something that we're going to have to all deal with as a community. Is that a fair enough summation, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, and I am seeing the city assessor crew going out daily, unless I'm busy and don't see them, but they've been going out on a regular basis. Seems like most of the office is leaving to get started on their tasks that they're looking at for the next cycle, if you will. So yeah, I'd say you wrapped it up pretty well.
And the last thing I'd say is I'm appreciative of our new, I know we've always, I think the majority of the board's opposed to having a separate city assessor, but I am hopeful that Mr. Lawson will lead in making sure that the full story is told, and I'll leave it at that.
Any other reports, Mr. Reddick?
Did have a region meeting today. Very small agenda, but still had time to disagree. The provider improvement grants that were brought up last meeting that we had authorized $200,000 for were handed out during the meeting. And it was not necessarily totally equitable. I do have a rundown of what was awarded. Did offer an amendment that wasn't voted on. It just died for lack of second because it was going to die. No, it's all 3 pages.
Oh, they're all together?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was 3 separate.
Matthew's got one if you want to share in there.
Okay.
I thought they were just all copies of one.
But the providers were a little upset that they weren't given copies. There was nothing there for them. You'll see things like gym memberships and coffee pots were, birthday supplies were given to some providers while a handicapped door was maybe not given to another. So that's why I wanted to bring up an amendment during the meeting. Kind of a little disappointed in how it went, but they went with the staff recommendations, and that's how it ended.
Keith, what was the process for provider improvements? Because we'd asked that a year ago, and they said we definitely need to have a process. What was the process for how they picked and chose?
It was totally unchanged from before. Their process was the same where they had providers apply with requests. A essentially staff board compiled a list, made the recommendations. As I said, the list was handed out at the meeting, and about, a minute after the motion was made, it was voted on.
It wasn't provided beforehand?
If it was beforehand, it may have been right before the gavel hit to start the meeting. It was right as the meeting started. And again, the providers were not notified anything as far as what they would be eligible to receive. There weren't copies there for providers, so a couple supervisors ran their copy out, but before it could have been handed to everybody, it was already voted on. So a gal came up afterwards, said she was very disappointed, as a taxpayer and a health care provider for 30 years as to how that meeting went. And that was the first time she had been to a Sioux Rivers meeting, so kind of an eye-opening event for her. So. That's the only one I had.
Anything else? Sir.
You mentioned about the Tuesday, May 29th meeting. Is that something?
Oh, sure.
So Tuesday, May 29th, it sounds like DHS will be meeting with the 3 counties to ensure that there's a continuation of services, which is the most important thing, which is what we have been wanting. I was glad that the Taxpayers Research Conference stipulated the need for new 2080 so that we can protect Woodbury County taxpayers and mental health services. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Do we have any citizen concerns for second batch? Any board concerns?
I do have a couple.
Sir?
This Thursday, I'm not going to be able to make, there's 2 Simcoe meetings. Sounds like CERTS and CERTIPA, the transit-related ones, 9:30 and 10:30. So it'd be about 2 hours.
What day is that?
On this Thursday.
Anybody else available?
I don't think I could get a sub to fill in my shift.
I will do my best.
Okay. The other deal on this, the MOU, I don't know that that's something I can sign there. I think that'd have to be a board decision.
What's the MOU you're referring to, Supervisor?
Well, it was sent by the CWA, and it seems as though what we had on the consent agenda a while back was for an individual case and not a policy change. So, I don't know. I think this...
Well, it's through the union. Melissa, can you explain that better? Thank you.
As well, but it's Melissa Thomas, HR. It was an MOU through the union involving the 120 hours of extended family leave for the employee. With our union contracts, you have 120 hours of sick time you can use for family events, child sickness or mother, spouse. Well, this I think took place, I can't even remember, like 2 months ago. We had a meeting, and one of the deputies needed to go over his sick time, so we brought it in front of the board to use more of his own sick time for his family instead of going to vacation or comp time or something like that to use. It does state in the union contract they get 120 hours for family of use of their own sick. That doesn't mean no pay. It just use of their sick leave. So anyhow, then we had a meeting regarding this, and like I said, Pat, if I'm speaking here, let me know. And we decided that we were going to go in front of the board so that when anybody wanted to utilize more of their own personal sick time for a family member, they'd have to get it approved by the Board of Supervisors. So we're going to put the sheriff into the mix a little bit so he can decide if it can be denied or approved, but it still had to go in front of the board. Well, this MOU does not bring it in front of the board. It just says the sheriff has the ability to approve or deny that request. So that's what the MOU is to be signed.
Well, I remembered us discussing that, and I thought that we had said that that would be something that was brought back for contract, not.
Just to add to this, as far as the payroll policy or procedure goes that we have in writing, is what we currently do is if someone exceeds the 120 hours, that individual is told that they have to use vacation or comp time or personal time. They're currently in our procedures not allowed to use sick time. But the contract states under the CWA sheriff's contract that if a person does exceed their time, then the board consults with the sheriff on what the resolution would be. So after the meeting that we had when an individual exceeded that amount, we did present that to the board for that individual, as you mentioned, to exceed the amount by using, did they use sick time?
They ended up using handles, yes.
And then they wrote this MOU to amend the contract.
So that it does not have to go in front of the board.
And 1 second. And the reason Mr. Radig has it is because he is vice chairman, and I'm also an employee of the sheriff's office, so it was advised for me to not.
Okay. That's
Basically.
helpful, because I was
There you
like,
go.
how did he get that? Where are we looking? All right.
There.
Okay. So, and this was a meeting that you were out, or no, this is because of the conflict of interest, that's why you have it, and you're being asked to sign it.
Yes.
But to go back to Keith's question, has this been approved by the board?
Not to my knowledge, it's not been approved by the board to this MOU.
We only approved on an
No.
individual case, not as a
Correct.
county policy.
So this would be a policy change then?
And it's a contract change too.
Okay.
The case that was approved followed the current contract guidelines of HR consulting with the sheriff and then coming to the board for the individual case.
But we can amend a contract through an MOU whenever we so choose.
No.
We just did so. What prohibits us from doing so when we approached our legal counsel and asked them if we could do an MOU on behalf of the county and voluntarily chose to enter into that with the union, what prohibits us in this instance?
Nothing prohibits you.
Okay. That's
With it, an MOU is not technically used to change a contract.
Okay.
But nothing prohibits us from
added
entering
to
into
it.
the MOU, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
But in my mind, it's still something that should come before the board for a vote prior to when the chairman or the vice chair signs the document.
At least a closed session on it or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you decide, if you would like to put it on the agenda, I'm going to suggest that you have an executive session before you do that and talk with your attorney who does collective bargaining.
Is that something we can do under closed session without litigation pending, or is that just we can get legal counsel back?
We'd have to look at that issue. There may be, since it deals with Chapter 20, there may be an exception there. I don't know that it would fit under the litigation exception, but I mean, the first I'm aware of this document is right now, so we could look at whether or not it could be a closed session, but
Well, as I understand it, the union is in favor of this, correct? Does that sound right?
The union, yes,
Yeah.
signed the document.
Okay.
right, irregardless, it would need to come before the board for the authorization to sign. So, and that would, it's not on the agenda this week, so it would need to be, next week would be the earliest it could be acted on.
And you haven't signed it?
No. I think we should have a group vote on it at least, or discussion at least. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Any other board concerns? We are adjourned.